I am here to answer the question everyone wants to know. Should he stay or should he go? This is Kenny's CDL checkup appointment. I am your host, Burrito. Let's talk.
We got Bandana Kenny up here. You gonna keep the bandana? You gonna keep the bandana or you gonna throw it out? Kenny, talk to me about how does this feel for you to get your second championship?
244, 247, Echo Fox in the hard point.
3 seconds left. For his Echo Fox close to stop. Coming in from the top, it's Kenny. Kenny fights two from the break. Fights the third as well. But inside the hard point, it's Aqua. It's a one-on-one. Aqua versus Kenny. Kenny wins it. Kenny wins. He wins the game. A 1 second hard point game. TK do it again.
Kenny killed all four and gets the final 3 ticks to win 250, 249. Oh, Lordy.
He's able to find one with Zed. Zed's going to fly on through. This should be a break for reciprocity. Kenny and Slasher, though, trying to do what they can. Kenny.
What is that? Kenny 3. Baby puts the game away there with the big dagger. 3-piece on to reciprocity. Kenny! 6 in a row. Kenny is a tear, an assassin as he dominates reciprocity.
And I mean, it's been such a battle, such an uphill struggle for them.
Hey, Kenny.
What's up?
I want to let you know something as well.
Yep.
You are our Major 4 MVP. Give it up for Kenny.
Who would have thought?
Ah!
Who would have thought?
You've been beaming all weekend, man.
Who would have thought? I mean,
Moments for them now. What a turnaround. What a tournament. Carolina survived. OpTic, Texas, go home.
The rest of their Sunday, OpTic though, it is right back to work. That is no map wins on the weekend.
See that the only person of these four that would like get everything out in the air and not be afraid of confrontation is Kenny.
Yo guys, welcome back to another episode of Borito Talk with your host Burrito, the #1 CDL content creator on YouTube. And you know, I was thinking, what would be better than a nice little player profile episode? And a player profile episode on none other than Quavo Kenny, the man himself. And I thought it would be nice just to give those who may not be familiar with Kenny's history a little rundown on his history. Maybe hearing his history will help you sort of garner an opinion of the things he's been through. Maybe this stuff in the past has shaped him today. Who knows? But I'm going to give a quick rundown. Maybe not a quick rundown. Depends how long I yap for. About a little bit of the history of Kenny from my POV and also from Call of Duty Wiki as well. So from my understanding, Kenny started his pro career sort of in AW 2015, but he only played 2 events or 1 event, but he was underage. So he had to wait until he was 18. So he actually came back 3 years later in World War II with Team Caliber. So in that time span where he wasn't playing Call of Duty, I believe he was playing Halo. And then he came back with Team Caliber in his first event. When Team Caliber picked him up, everyone thought it was a bad mistake because I think they dropped like JCap or something. Like they dropped somebody important. I don't think it was JCap. Was JCap on TK? I don't know. Yeah, we're going to go through the history here. I'm pretty sure it actually says it right here. He dropped, I think it was Theory. Okay. I know. Anyways, so he got picked up in World War II. People were skeptical about it. And in his very first event, TK won that event and didn't drop a single series that whole entire event. People were like, okay, it's 1 event. Maybe it was just like a honeymoon phase. Didn't drop a map. The next event, they end up winning that one too. They go back to back. And that's when Accuracy had an ego, you know. He's like, we're on top of the world, baby. And then TK had a little bit of inconsistencies. And then they picked up Pharaoh for Chino. So it was enable, Kenny, accuracy, and Pharaoh. And they started performing good again. And then they won again later on in the season and then got second place at World War II champs. Arguably, they should have won that. But, I mean, EJ just came out and played them better. And then going into the Black Ops 4 season, I believe it was Enable, Octane, Kenny, Priesta, and I mean, honestly, we're going to go through it. Actually, I might as well just go through it right now. So here's Kenny's tournament results. For those of you on video, you guys could see with me. If you're on audio, I'll explain. So, yeah, so exactly. In World War II with the TK, they won the event before COD Champs, and then they got second at the event. Arguably, they should have won. Kenny should probably be a 3-time champ right now, a 3-time world champion. Then going into Black Ops 4, it was Kenny, Pharaoh, Octane, Slasher, and Abel. And then they ended up dropping Pharaoh after one event and a qualifier and picked up Slasher. So it was Kenny, Octane, Slasher, and Abel, Priesta. They were a top team, placing kind of inconsistent. Then they got back-to-back wins at CWL, London, and Anaheim back-to-back. And then they got a third, fourth, a fifth, sixth, and then second at Call of Duty Championships to the E-United team with a BZ and Simp. Simp came in and he took over. And then going into the MW season, which was the beginning of his chaos. And I think that's the season that really started turning his brain into turmoil. So many changes and complications in this MW 2019 season. So for those of you who don't know, Infinite bought out OpTic Gaming, Hex's team, and they called it OGLA. But Hex or Scump and all the original members were not on that team. They ended up partnering with Energy Esports, and they formed Chicago Huntsmen, and that was quote unquote like the real OpTic team that had like the real OpTic guys behind it. And I could even read you this like small thing just detailing the trials of the OpTic Gaming LA MW 2019 season with Kenny on it. So the Immortals Gaming Club purchased the franchise spot. Mud Dog was the GM. Their starting roster was TJ, Dashy, Kenny, Slasher, and J-Cap. And Pac-Man was their head coach. OpTic opened their 2020 season by losing to both Paris Legion and the old OpTic team, Chicago Huntsmen, at launch weekend. After supposedly fixing their mistakes while not attending London, OpTic lost both their matches in week 3. Then, despite the poor start to the season, OpTic did not make any roster changes for their inaugural home series. Instead, Slasher moved to main AR and Dashy moved to an SMG. Can you imagine that? And then the switch started off slow, but they reverse swept LAG in the Battle of LA and then upset Minnesota Rocker to win their first ever matches and advance out of the groups for the first time. In a closely contested series, OpTic fell 3-1 to Dallas Empire in the semifinals. And then after an extended break due to COVID, OpTic returned in week 6. Dallas defeated them in match 1 with the Gorillas getting revenge in the elimination game, knocking OpTic out of the tourney. Chino then came off the bench to replace J-Cap in week 7. And then they said that Chino basically gave OpTic a boost, even though he didn't perform well in the statistical category. They made it out of the group stage for the second time after defeating Paris and London in the losers bracket. They beat Ultra in the semifinals and nearly beat Atlanta FaZe in the final, but lost 3-1 in a very closely contested series. Despite making the team's first final, head coach Pac-Man was released from the team following the day and claims he was not giving warning beforehand. Jeez. That's crazy. I completely forgot about that. OpTic made it out of groups again in week 8 after getting revenge against Minnesota Rocker, who beat them in their first match in the qualifier game. London beat them 3-2 in the semifinals. But the team, especially Slasher, continued to look very good throughout the whole event. In week 10, the team returned to their earlier form and went out 0-2 with a particularly embarrassing series against Ultra, who took map 1 by a score of 250-49. Kenny said afterwards that the team had practiced terribly all season, and that was to blame for their poor performances. On July 10th, Chino was moved back to the bench with Dashy joining him. They were replaced by Draza and Hollow. So this is where Draza got his debut into the Pro League when Chino and Dashu were both benched. Despite only winning one series in their first event with the new team in Week 12, they impressed and showed off their new talent in two tough series versus Florida Mutineers. They rounded out the regular season with a semi-final appearance in Week 13 that included a win over Chicago Huntsmen before losing 3-0 to FaZe. OpTic finished the season in 9th place with 100 CDL points, which, let me tell you, is not good because 100 CDL points is 10 total wins, basically. So they got 10 wins the whole MW 2019 season, which is not good. OpTic started in losers round 1 at the COD Champs 2020, which was online, by the way, for those of you who don't know. They start off by defeating LAG 3-2 with Dashi subbing in for Quavo in Game 5 due to connection issues. OGLA then beat Minnesota Rocker and Florida Mutineers 3-0 before losing the Heartbreaker. For those of you who don't remember, go back and watch it. They lost a Game 5 to Chicago Huntsmen, S&D. I think it was round 11, too. Unbelievable. Bro, if they won that game, they probably would have made it far. But they ended up finishing top 6 because of that. But a lot of roster changes during the season. Like, they start off with a pretty, like, stacked roster. TJ, Dashy, Kenny, Slasher, JCap. Pretty stacked roster of experience and good players all in their prime. I think if they're playing like a better game like MW 2019, it was like good feeling and good mechanically, but I mean like the maps and everything just made it a terrible game, to be honest. Like if that team was in a better game, probably that would be interesting to see actually. But those are all the changes from like the OGLA season in 2019. And then we get into the Cold War season after that. Damn, I can't believe Cold War is the season right after. Imagine going MW 2019 to Cold War. Insane. So this Cold War season was the season of... Dude, this season was like the season of hell, bro. They made... I swear it felt like 20 roster changes, but we're going to read this team history of LA Thieves in Black Ops Cold War. So brace yourselves. Nate Shot and 100 Thieves announced their return to Call of Duty Esports with the acquisition of OpTic Gaming LA's Call of Duty League slot, along with 4 of the remaining players on their roster, Slasher, Kenny, TJ, and Draza. Muddog rejoined as the GM in the position. JCap became the head coach, so MW 2019 was his last season as a pro player. Shout out to JCap. The Thieves began Stage 1 with a 4-0 record before facing off against Dallas, who was also 4-0 in the final match of the stage. They lost 3-0, but still started the major in winners. A 3-0 loss to the Gorillas. I can't even believe I'm saying that. I think that Gorillas team was like Gunless, Slacked, Looney, and someone else. I forgot who. I can't believe I'm forgetting. But lost 3-0 to LAG, sent them to losers where they beat Toronto before losing to OpTic Chicago to finish top 6. Stage 2 started with a 3-2 win against Toronto, then lost 3-2 against New York. The team decided a change was needed, and Temp was moved to the bench and replaced by Van. Wait, what? Where am I missing that? Oh my God, I missed that part. JCap. Okay, so, dude, I completely missed the sentence. So at the beginning, it was Slasher, Kenny, TJ, Draza. A day later, after playing with the team since the game's release, Temp was officially announced as their 4th. So it was Kenny, Slasher, Temp, and TJ. It was not Draza. Jeez, what the heck? Okay, so Kenny, Slasher, Temp, TJ. So the team decided a change was needed, and Temp was moved to the bench and replaced by Challengers player Venom, which made no sense. I mean, it kind of did make sense because he was playing very good. Haven't heard of that guy since. That guy's off in the ether now. They finished the stage by losing the remainder of their matches to finish with a 1-4 record. Going into the major, Slasher was surprisingly moved to the bench to make room for Draza in the lineup. So now it's Kenny, Draza, Venom, and TJ. They even let Slasher play on LAN. Crazy. The Thieves would start in losers round 1 with no competitive matches played as the current 4-man roster. They beat Paris, London, and New York. So with that new roster that didn't have any playing time together, they beat Paris, London, and New York before running out of gas against Ultra and loses round 4. Can't blame them for losing to that team. That team was pretty final in that game. The top 6 finish helped the makeup for CDL points lost during the group stage. Temp departed from the team on April 13th to join Paris Legion's starting roster. Probably like his biggest mistake ever. Actually, not really. Stage 3 started off great for Thieves. They won 3 out of their 4 first matches, with one loss being Game 5 against the best overall team so far in the season, Atlanta FaZe. Despite these results, the team saw an opportunity to improve greatly by signing superstar Slayer Hook off of Dallas Empire. So this is their 3rd change now, or maybe 4th. I think 3rd. So now they move Hook to the starting roster for TJ. For a very large fee, apparently. They lost the final series of the stage 1-3 to New York Subliners in Hook's debut. In the stage 3 major, LA Thieves lost to Florida and took down a streaking London before dropping to Ultra again and loses round 4 to finish top 6 once again. Having only played 4 matches with the team, Hook was then now moved to the bench for TJ Haley. So, dude, what the heck are we on? We're on 1, 2, 3, 4 changes now. Jeez, I think it's 5 actually. Dude, crazy. Dude, where am I? I got lost after that. Hook was then moved to the bench for TJ, returning to his spot as starting lineup due to playstyle issues. That's why Hook got benched. Jeez, can't even believe that. Thieves began stage 4 with a 1-2 record. They then changed the roster again, bringing Hook and Slasher back into the lineup in preparation for online events returning. So that's the 5th change. They would not win either of the remaining 2 matches of the stage and finish in 5th in Group A with a 1-4 record. Less than an hour before the losers round 1 matchup against crosstown rivals LAG in both teams' first LAN match at stage 4 major, it was announced that Hook will be replaced by Draza for the series because Hook failed to complete his COVID test on time. So that's the 6th change. I think 6 now. I think it's 6. They lost in Game 5 round 11 to place dead last. Going into stage 5, the Thieves bench TJ and Hook again. Dude. The 7th change, this time for Draza and John, who would make his pro level return for the first time since the end of Black Ops 4. Crazy. Ups and downs during the stage resulted in a 3rd place finish in Group A with a 3-2 record. Starting in winners round 1, the Thieves won both hardpoints against Ultra, but were smoked in the other 3 maps and dropped into losers with a 3-2 loss. Unfortunately, they got Nuzlowed. A 3-1 win against NYSL and a 3-1 loss to Dallas Empire ended their regular season with a top 6 finish. A 7th seed going into champs was far below the expectations, as they finished with 240 CDL points and an 18-21 record with a 74-83 map record. Crazy. The Thieves started COD champs in losers round 1. They pushed Minnesota all the way to Game 5, but lost Miami Surge 6-4 and were eliminated with a top 8 finish. Dude, I'm not sure if we're counting like that Draza for Slasher in the beginning, but that's 7 different changes that whole season, which is absurd if you really think about it. 7 changes in one season. And having that back to back with like your MW 2019 season is crazy to me. So that's insane roster switches. And you could even see here as we go back into the tournament results. So tournament results in MW 2019, it's not counting all the home series that they played. It's because I have it on offline. So these are the tourneys they played on LAN. So in the LAN of MW 2019, 9th and 12, 7, 8, 3, 4, 9 place. And then, oh yeah, that's the 9th place finish in the league. Okay, whatever. And then in Cold War on LAN, 11th, 12th, 5, 6, 7th, and 7th, 8th. Which is crazy. And half the events were online, so you're only seeing like 4 events, but these are all offline because this is all offline. And then in Vanguard, when we started to return to like on-LAN events and majors, the Kickoff Classic, they got 3 4th, 5 6th, and then 7th, 8th. Second in the Pro-Am Classic, 4th, and then back-to-back wins in Major 4 and COD Champs with draws of Kenny, Octane, and Envoy. And let's not forget, Kenny in that season was not playing well, as we're going to go through statistics right now. We're going to go through statistics for Vanguard, because he did not have a good Vanguard year, to his standards at least. And he was swapping back and forth, because he started off as an AR and Draza was an SMG, and then they switched roles about halfway through the season, and that's when things started turning around, when they put Draza on an AR and Kenny back to a sub. So in his first event in Vanguard, a 1.13, which is good, a 1.05, 1.02, then a 0.84, 0.80, 0.93, 0.94, 0.95, 0.98, a 1.15 at Major 4, which was his best event all year. And then at Call of Duty Championships, a 1.10, but in the grand finals, I don't think he played that well. But you see how things started to change around once he started to switch to a sub. And then going into, MW2 now. MW2, I mean, exact same team as last year. They had their ups and downs, but they placed 5-6, 2nd, 7th, 8th, 1st, 5-6, 7th, 8th, and 5th. And I think 5th is like their ending of like the season. So their last placing was 7th, 8th in the MW2 season. Yeah, so that was it for actually it for Octane at that point. And then going in MW3, which is like the OG team, obviously they placed 3rd, 2nd, 1st, 9th, 12th, which is basically last. They got OFR'd. And then 1st at COD Champs. And then, I mean, going to this, they placed 7th, 8th at Black Ops 6. So you can see all his events. There's a lot of wins in there, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of roster changes in like the 2019 to 2021 season. That's when all the turmoil starting. But before then, he was on a pretty smooth road of consistency. So we're going to break down my thought process on all of this. So talking a bit about Kenny's statistics a little bit and just him in general. So when he came in World War II, he became a superstar SMG player, became one of, if not the best SMG player in the pro scene on that game. He was absolutely frying as an SMG. I mean, the statistics don't even tell the whole story, but he only had below a 1.0 KD in an event one time, and it was a 0.96. Otherwise, in World War II, 1.03, 1.04, 1.12, 1.12, 1.19, 1.07, 1.04, 1.19, 1.01, 1.13 at Champs. So he was and like at stage 2, bro. I think stage 2, it was also counting the actual stage, because he had 1,122 kills and 1,080 deaths. He was like an engagement monster. But so after he established himself as a superstar player in that World War II season, going into like the Black Ops 4, I felt like he knew he was like a superstar, so he could kind of like have his say on what he wanted to do. So he was an superstar SMG. Then going into Black Ops 4, he's using the SMG, and in that game, the SOG was not as powerful as the other guns, the Maddox and the ICR. So I'm not going to say egoed his way, but he did not want to use the SOG anymore. He said, I'm not using it. And since he was a superstar player, I mean, they weren't going to stop him. So he started using the Maddox, and someone else had to switch to like the SOG. So I think after he established himself as a pro player, after he established himself as a superstar and basically decided he wants to use whatever the best gun is. I remember him saying that too. He said, I want to use whatever the best gun in the game is, because that's where he's going to be at his best. When he's using the best gun in the game, that's when you get the best out of him. So he started running the Maddox, and he started doing good, as you can tell by the statistics. 1.20, 1.05, 1.15, 0.97, whatever, and then a 1.10 at COD Champs. And then going into the MW 2019 season, I mean, the MP5 was fine, but the M4 was just way, 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 way better. So he's using the AR that whole season. And then in Cold War, he wanted to just stick with an AR at that point. Didn't want to run a sub. So he was he's basically not the main AR, but started mainly just using the AR in the MW season going forward. So MW, Cold War, Vanguard, MW2, MW3, Black Ops 6. He started using it after the AR just started to become like the best weapon in the game. But you could honestly argue in MW3, the SMG was just as good. And even like in Vanguard, the MP40, I mean, we had guys like Pred showing that SMG players could be the superstars of the league. Like, he was frying and putting up crazy KD numbers with the SMG. But ever since then, Kenny basically wanted to be an AR, and you can see his AR statistics after MW19 pretty inconsistent. 0.75 at the Kickoff Classic in Cold War, but then it alters from 0. But like, you could basically see from like his KDs that like he didn't really, I mean, he's always hovered around like the same area. Granted, like back then he was playing way better. Like, he had a 1.15 at COD Champs. And then going into Vanguard, like the Automaton, obviously like a way better gun. But he did switch to a sub in this game. He wanted to stay using the Automaton, but then that team realized that they needed a submachine gun player who could communicate better. So they moved Draza to the AR, and they moved Kenny to a sub. They want a more vocal SMG, like the partner, like with Envoy, because the SMGs in that game got a lot more of the info. So Kenny said, I'm just going to do that role. So, yeah, so I mean, you could pretty much see from the statistics, I mean, not really far off. Like, so far in Black Ops 6, 0.88, 0.93, 0.91, and at the Kason Showdown, we're not even going to count that. But basically hovering around at 0.90. It's not super far from where he was in the past, but obviously significantly lower. There were like events like in MW2 where he had a 0.87 at COD Champs. Insane. 0.83 in the Major 5 qualifiers. 0.82 at Major 3 in MW2. Like, he's had like events like that in the past. But what makes the Black Ops 6 season more different than all the others? Because yes, he has been a superstar player in his day, but I think it was because just his history, like in Cold War, he had to kind of like grow up a bit faster, to be honest, because he didn't really have the other players around him that had the experience. They were alternating a lot, so they started bringing Hook, Temp, TJ. Granted, those players had experience with it, but they weren't really veteran leaders, like strong voices on the team, like in that sense. So he didn't really have that. So he had to kind of grow up in like that Cold War year, and then going into Vanguard with Envoy and Octane. I mean, even though they didn't have a crazy good year, I felt like those were just good years to just evolve as a player. Like I already said, like Draza in those years. He really needed those years with Octane, Envoy, Kenny, because I felt like that helped him become the personality and the leader that he's become on Atlanta FaZe. Like those years with Octane, Envoy, and Kenny, I felt were great for Draza. But as you can see from Kenny's statistics, but what makes this season different than the others, I think it's expectation, and it's just not the same anymore. Like now, Call of Duty, granted, it's always been like, you know, if you're doing bad, like you make a roster change, but now more than ever with like the COD League getting tighter, maybe with like 2-3 spots in the league, I think it's 2, now being like nationality based, so it's basically like 10 spots in the league. So if you're not performing, got to get another person in there. We're just in the results business, results. If you're not getting results right away, but people have to take into account like the last year that OpTic had, MW3. It was not super great. They had a lot more consistent like top 3 placings, but they did have the Major 4 where they did absolutely terrible, went 1-6. And then got OFR'd back-to-back losses at the Major. So, I mean, not really anything more crazy. But, so, now we're going to go into his statistics for this Black Ops 6 season. So, this is where it gets a little bit mind-blowing. So, this is overall KD in the league out of every player that's touched in the league so far. He is 50th out of 54 players in the league for Black Ops 6 so far, with a 0.87 overall KD, 79.24 Slayer rating. Search one about Slayer ratings. I don't really look into that. And he has a 0.89 in S&D, a 0.77 in control. Actually, wait, I'm reading that wrong. 0.89 in hardpoint. 0.89 in hardpoint, my bad. 0.77 in S&D, and a 0.89 in control. For an AR, I've always said this, and there's actually like a lot of other people that have said this, even like a lot of ex-pros that have said this. To be considered a good AR, you should always be hovering around a 1.0 or higher, just because the roll of an AR is slower. There's a lot more hard aiming. There's a lot more positional gunfights. It's not like an SMG where you're sprinting basically like 95% of the time. So if you're averaging below a 1.0 as an AR, you're probably not in the higher echelon of ARs. You can see like the best ARs in the league right now, like the MCs, like even like the Dashies, always hovering over like a 1.0, like the Scraps, the Ghosties. I think Ghosty might be below like a 1.0, but that's like an anomaly. But to be averaging an 0.87 as AR is just like not really good. Even if you're like a quote unquote flex AR and a fast AR, an 0.87 just means, quite simply put, you're not winning your gunfights. As an SMG, these KDs are not great, but you know, you're a lot more in the mix. Like, you know, you're a lot more in the mix. You're sprinting all the time. You're in constant engagements, constantly getting naded and stunned. You know, you're just like in war basically the whole time. So for an AR, not really as good. And I also highlighted here. So for those of you watching on video, you guys could see. For those of you on audio, I'll explain, obviously. So here I highlighted the two matches that they played with AG. These are the first two matches of the Pro League before they switched to Hook. So the first two matches with AG, he was still doing this exact same performance. He had a 0.82 in their first two matches, a 71 Slayer rating, a 0.86 respawn KD, 0.82 hard point, 0.52 in S&D in the two games, and a 0.92. And that was their 3-2 loss to Boston and their 3-0 victory to Cloud9, who was playing on like an LA server, or I mean, who was not playing on LA server. They're in LA playing like on like a South or like Central server that did not make, they were like on 50 or 40 ping or like fucking like whatever to OpTic was playing like 20. And like they said, like they were in war. So that was like an instant win. That was like a free win. That was a free stat pad, actually. So that would have been like the good match to get your KD up. So even if we highlight just that match, like with Cloud9. So that match with Cloud9, like you had a 0.95, so a lot better. You had a 1.2 hard point because only played one hard point map, a 1.4 S&D, and a 0.7 control. But now we're going to highlight the matches with Hook and not AG, even though this isn't really an argument about Hook and Kyler, but, or I mean, Hook and Kyler, Hook and AG. Dude, it's a lot of matches. Here, I'm actually going to deselect them all, and then I'm going to reselect them and just take off those matches and then take off the Atlanta FaZe and Rocker matches. So with Hook, he had a 0.92, an 81 Slayer rating, so a slight improvement, but a higher sample of games to play, obviously. Like, he had way more games played with Hook. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Dude, like a lot more games. So, I mean, honestly, really, the only consensus I could really say is, like, you could talk about being a team dynamic all you want, but at the end of the day, he just has to get more kills. He just has to get more kills. And I think it's just him trying to find himself, and I don't think he's going to have any issues doing that. He's always found a way to bounce back. I just don't like the argument of, oh, well, he always, like, what the heck do people say? They said he always like performs near the end of the season. Well, the only thing I don't like about that argument is like, okay, so like going into every season, are you just gonna be like, it's okay if he does bad 75% of the season, but it's okay if he picks up the last half? But I mean, it's not really that consistent because not like he's like every year at the end he's like, I mean, he has placed in the grand finals of COD Champs quite a handful of times, but I mean, it's not like, yeah, you do bad 75% of the season, and then when it gets to champs, like, you always fucking win that event. It's not like that at all. So I don't really like that argument either. Like, why is everyone else playing good like a majority of the season and he only plays good near the end? Like, that's not even an argument. I actually don't find that a real argument at all. He just needs to. I personally feel like he needs to play more like MC. It sounds crazy because MC used to be like a slower AR, but now if you see the way MC's playing, he plays with his team. Like, he is like in the mix, always there for trades, and the fact that he's always there for trades is good because he's always getting kills, always finishing kills. Yeah, he's not gonna be with his team all the time, like, you know, as an AR, like, you do have like some spots to hold, some spawns to hold, some long angles where your team's not always gonna be there, but majority of the time you're in the mix. And you got to think with the way this game plays, like, this is the game, and I could also understand why Kenny's playing sort of like not like that great, because this is a game that requires a lot less route taking and a lot more concentration on just like manning the hill and just being around like the objective, especially when it comes to hardpoint, because control is not really any rocket science. Like, you basically getting kills. There are like spawns like the hold and like ways that you make control way easier. It's not just about kills. There are like spawns to hold to make them spawn in specific spots, but majority of the issues right now are on hardpoint. Like, at the major, their S&D was fine and their control was fine, but now I feel like their S&D is going to take a hit because now they got AG and not Hook. So that's another thing they're going to have to work on, but that's a team thing. We're talking about specifically Kenny, and he's struggling in the hard points and controls right now. The control should be a lot more easier for him to pick up on. I mean, just need to fucking win more gunfights. You just need to win more gunfights. There's not really that much to say about that game. And also, when it comes to hardpoint, I feel like he needs to pull out an SMG more, because like a lot of the times, because like they have a main AR who's consistently going to run the AR every single time, no matter what, and that is a Dashy. He's going to have the AR out every single time. So what Kenny needs to do is learn how to pull out an SMG more, especially when it comes to breaking, when you're on the back foot and you need that extra pressure. I watch a lot of T Fellow in challengers, and granted, he's an AR like 90% of the time, but whenever his team needs to break or needs to pick up the pace a bit, he always pulls out like a third SMG temporarily until they get control again. Then once they have control, you can literally pull out an AR. I think Kenny needs to do more of that, like on Skyline Hardpoint. Definitely needed to do more of that. He was losing a lot of gunfights with the ARs. Like, if you need to change your pace, pull out an SMG. I mean, it's not really going to go against tactics on a map like Skyline. I mean, it's a pretty close range map anyway. I think it would benefit a lot more. I feel like that's why teams like LEG have found a lot of success on Skyline Hardpoint. Granted, they just made a roster change, but Priest would be pulling out a third SMG, and he would be flying, and it would always turn the tides of their games. So I think that's something Kenny needs to venture into a bit more, is just running that third SMG a bit more, especially from a person who always wanted to use like the best gun in the game. Right now, the SMG, I mean, maybe with like the exclusion of the long barrel, it's not really like the best gun. Now it's a lot more even, but it still is a really good gun that you can pull out a lot more in your favor. To be honest, I feel like that would help a lot more, but I just feel like he needs to be more in the mix with his team and just not overcomplicate this game as much. So I'm gonna like explain what I mean by that. So he, just like me, I mean, we used to play like these old CODs where it's a lot more traditional, a lot more route taking, a lot more thought put into the map, which is why like teams like Ultra and OpTic, I feel, should be way better at red card. I don't even feel like a team like OpTic should be vetoing red card, because I feel like it'd play exactly to the way like Kenny actually wants to play in this game. So I feel like that's something they have to add to their map pool. Like, that should be a map they should be like probably like the best team in the game on, because it's mostly just like having a guy on the hill and getting kills. But with the way they play red card, they put Dashy in the hill, which I feel like they should be having an SMG on the hill, like AG a majority of the time. But AG and Shotzi aren't really typically players that like to be in the hill all the time, which is why their dynamic on red card is so fucked up all the time. So back to what I was saying about the old maps. So with the old maps, or I mean, with the old maps, the old games, there's just a lot more traditional, a lot more route taking, a lot more thought put into it. But honestly, with Black Ops 6, not saying it's like completely brainless, because you do need a thought process in Hardpoint in every game. No matter how horrible the game is, there is still like a thought process to make the game as consistent as possible, which is why when you see these games like Vanguard, MW2, like horrible games with horrible maps played at the pro level, you see how much different they play as opposed to when you're playing like ranked or pubs, because there is an organized way to like make these maps feel more consistent, and that's a system, because Kenny likes playing in systems, which he found in Vanguard, and which is why he had success. He even said, like, we found a way to play in Vanguard that was a consistent way of playing, so that, like, didn't matter if everyone was dropping, like, a 0.9, we were consistently getting consistent results because we were playing consistent, da-da-da-da-da. They made the game feel more consistent. But in this game, honestly, this game, even though there are, like, thought process, like, flipping spawns and all that stuff, all this rotation stuff, like, it all still does matter in this game. But this game's a lot more centered on banging the hill together and just being with each other, trading out, playing around the objective. You find a lot more success. There's a lot less thought put into 4 out of 5 of these hardpoint maps. I mean, I guess Hacienda is also like a rotation map. Like Hacienda and Red Card are basically the more traditional hardpoint maps that require like rotation. But 3 out of the 5, the Skyline, the Vault, and the Protocol, you just need to be with your team more and just trade more and be more aggressive, be more in the fight. That's why teams like Atlanta FaZe are finding a lot more success on those maps, because you just need to effectively be around the objective, which is why like those clips on like Protocol when he's wondering why people are going in the hill, like I take his side in that, because in situations like that, if his teammate Shotsier, who goes on the hill in that Protocol, like from P1 to P2, he just has to watch over them and it's free kills, da-da-da-da-da. Like this game, 3 out of 5 of the maps, even honestly all of them, like just the majority in this game, is just playing around the objective, having people watch over, like you get kills, you push out, you flip spawns. It's a lot more oriented about just playing with your team, playing around the hill. And that's why I feel like he needs to play a bit more with like just not thinking as much, because I ran into this same problem early on in ranked in this game. I mean, I can't believe we're playing me even trying to compare rank to like the pro level is hilarious, but I don't mean like that. Basically what I'm trying to say is like I'm so focused on like flipping and rotation and spawns and taking routes, when realistically I would find more success in this game just banging the hill, being by my team, da-da-da-da-da. But, like, I grew up on, like, the old COD that, like, a lot of people grew up on. But in this game, you just need to, like, play more to the hill. Just play fucking faster with your team. That's really what it comes down to. Because there's so many games I was like, man, I feel like I'm making all the right plays, you know, like I'm flipping spawns, doing all the rotation, but like not as much interactions, not as much with the hill, and then we end up losing the game by like 80, and I'm like, I swore I played a really good game. And granted, I mean, that's completely different because this guy's just not getting any kills, so that's another thing to take into account. But he just needs to learn that in this game, it's just a lot more trade heavy, a lot playing faster, find a lot more success. You could keep your fundamentals on Hacienda and Red Card, but you still need to be in the mix with your team. Like, I feel like Hacienda and Red Card should be like their best maps just traditionally. And I feel another thing that messes up the dynamic a little bit is the fact that Shotzi and Pred are just not like, I don't really find them to be a good SMG duo. Like, I don't care what arguments you guys make about them. Like, oh yeah, like they made champs, fucking whatever. But you look at Shotzi and Pred, and granted, Shotzi does play the objective. Shotzi has said, like, I just play for the win. But traditionally, Shotzi at his best is a player who roams and gets kills. He's not a player who's on the hill soaking, having people watch over him. AG is a roamer. He put Mac and he put accuracy on the hill. He's flying around getting kills. That's where he finds the most success. So they basically have two SMG players who are at their best when they're roaming and getting kills, but they don't have like an SMG player who like could just play the hill, and like has no problem doing it, finds a lot of success. Like Abizi and Sim, both of them are superstar SMGs, but they have figured out, they figured out early too, they didn't really have an issue with it too. They could both be aggressive, roam and get kills, but they know how to play the objective. Like either of those players both know how to just sit on the hill and play the hill, get kills on the hill, have people play around them. Shotzi and Pred aren't really like, they haven't really like mastered that as much. And I feel like that affects Kenny as well, because like if you're an AR in this player, if you're an AR in this game, granted, like a game like MW3 was like way different, where like ARs were mostly soaking and SMGs were roaming. But I think in this game, sort of like just with how mixy it is, there's a lot more SMGs on the hill and ARs playing out or holding cuts. Like you see LA Thieves, like granted, there's a lot of maps where Dan Ghosty has like the highest kills, but maps like fucking Red Card, where they have an SMG on the hill and scrapping fucking Ghosty, or just outside just slaying with ARs. Like OpTic doesn't have that. So Kenny has to like fly on the hill. Like he's like the ultimate plug player right now. And that's why, I mean, I kind of want to save my consensus for like the end, but I think you guys already know where I'm sort of going with this. But I feel like the whole dynamic, like that's why I feel like a player like Kismet or something, like the partner with Shotzi or AG, like unless AG moves to like a flex, which he's not going to do it. But I don't even like an AG and Dashy flex, or I mean AR duo. Like I think people are just solely thinking about kills, but they need a brain on that team. Not saying Shotzi, AG, and Pred don't have a brain, but bro, they need a player like Kenny on that team. Like it is like mandatory. Like I don't think like AG, Dashi, and Shotzi, like they need like that like mature player on the team, because whatever you want to say about like talent, I'm talking about more than talent. I'm talking about like the mental aspect to the game, and like a maturity to play consistent in game and play like responsibly in game. I put that burden mostly on Kenny, and without Kenny in that team, I mean, I don't think they win MW3 champs at all. Yeah, I don't think they even get an event if they don't have Kenny on that team. Like, who would be like a replacement for Kenny who's like in the league? I'm not even talking about out of the league, because out of the league, there's like basically no one that can replace Kenny on this team specifically for ARs. So if you're talking like outside the league, it's kind of like, or I mean, if you're talking about inside the league, would have to say like with pace wise, like, dude, like honestly, probably like nobody, like just like at the maturity level too, like have to be like Slasher or a Ghosty again. You know, it would have to be, but he's not meshing with Dashy, so it's kind of like Draza, but he's already on a team, you know, like all like the options really like for good, like mature, like experienced flex ARs who could get kills and know how to be plug players, because not just about getting kills. I'm hearing people say OpTic and Courage. I'm like, what are you guys smoking? Like, this is more than just kills. This is like the intangibles brought to a team, and I'm gonna die on this hill. Like, granted, it's not really a saving grace all the time, like, oh, he brings the intangibles, but if you're not getting kills, you're just not getting kills. So that is an aspect of his game he needs to work on. But I mean, you need a player like him, just like the mental aspect to the game and keeping everyone in check. Like, they need a player like Kenny on that team. Like, I don't trust AG, Shotzi, and Dashy. I trust them at a skill level, but like consistently in the game, like to do like all like the right things, I don't trust those three players without a player like Kenny on the team. They need like a plug player, but I feel like this team would honestly benefit more like if they didn't have Shotzi and AG, and they had like, they need like a Kismet would be perfect, or like an Envoy, like to go with Shotzi would be perfect. A guy who has no issue taking the bomb in S&D, but is still good at S&D, can make plays, plays aggressive, can play the hill all the time with no issue, plays for the win. If they had another one of those players, like a Kenny, Shotzi, Dashy, Kismet, it would be perfect. Like, and I do think Hook is a better option than AG, but like AG is just so good at this game. Like, AG actually reminded me how good he really is in this game. Like, so good. But I think the dynamic of the SMGs is mainly what throws the I was about to say Dashy, mainly what throws Kenny off. And I think add that on with like Dashy sometimes not doing the right thing, sometimes blacking out. I don't think that helps it either. So I think it is more of a team dynamic thing. It's a mixture of team dynamic and him just having to play a lot better, is my opinion on the Kenny thing. I can honestly rant about this all the time, but I don't think it's solely on just kills. I feel like this issue's always been there, but it got like a mass with like, oh yeah, they got the Major 3 and they got the World Championship. But if you're an OpTic fan, don't be using the, oh, but they won champs. I don't care. Like, in my opinion, I don't think Shotzi and AG are a good SMG duo. Like, every once in a while, like the Major 3, like grand finals and like the COD champs, like you'll get those events where just everyone's firing all cylinders and they'll dominate and they'll win. But I just think overall, like that dynamic at SMGs does not help Kenny's case at all, because now he needs to go for being like ARs. Like there should be like a more like versatile AR, like to do more of the dirty work, but there needs to be an SMG player also to complement that, and they don't really have that player to complement Kenny in the SMG category. So I kind of feel like that whole dynamic is kind of effing them up, but we're kind of in a game where, I mean, it actually does matter, like regardless of like the game, like to be honest. But in MW3, they kind of got away with it more because ARs had to play like the hill a lot more, and SMGs literally had to push out more. It still kind of is like this in Black Ops 6, but with how close everything is, like it's mostly SMGs on the hill, to be honest, unless it's like a far away hill, like a P4 or like something like that on like a vault. But I mean, I can yap about this all day, but I wanted to keep this quick. So those are like my quick thoughts about Adachi, or I mean about Kenny. Holy cow. My final consensus is not to drop Kenny. This is more of like a team dynamic, personally, in my opinion, than I feel like it is just him. He obviously needs to shoot back more, because like you watch him on like the mini map, I could tell even a player as confident as him, it's sort of getting to him, because like now I feel like he's like second guessing his gunfights. Position now is off a bit more. I could tell he's in his head on the map just by looking at him. And there's a lot of times like he is like, a lot of times he could have like the first shot and he's still not getting the kills. Like, so there's definitely a confidence thing, and confidence is big when it comes to like gunfights and everything. Like the way you take gunfights, the mentality you have going into gunfights when you know that you're better than someone, all that stuff is actually like real. Like all that stuff is super real. And take a look at this version of Hacienda that we're watching, bro. Like this version where you could like actually play the outside and climb up like whenever you wanted and didn't have to go around the edges all the time. But yeah, I feel like this is more of like a team dynamic issue. I think like the more AG or Shotzi or both of them can like evolve into being versatile players, but also his S&D. That's another thing about Kenny real quick. His S&D does really need to improve. He needs to find a way, dude. The whole team has to like just reevaluate like their S&D and how to get everyone more involved to get more consistent like results. Because with Hook, honestly, like the way they played S&D before with Hook, like you could kind of throw like the Hook and the Shotzi Pokeball, and you had AR Dashi there like to pick up the pieces at, and Kenny didn't really have to do much like with Hook on the team. But now I feel like with AG, and AG still needs to get used to being the guy to carry the bomb, because Shotzi's not carrying the bomb, so AG has to carry it by default, because both ARs majority of the time have to watch like different flanks. So one of the SMGs has to carry it, and it's never going to be Shotzi. So Pred does have to adapt to like that. But like I feel like in S&D, Kenny should maybe play more around like the bomb players, honestly. Like just play more with like the SMGs and S&D. I'm going to go through their S&Ds, and I'll actually make like a long video of like ways I think OpTic could do better in S&D specifically, because I feel like they'll find their footing and respawn, but their S&D is something I'm worried about after like they lost Hook. So yeah, I do feel like the Dashi needs to or I mean, why do I keep saying Dashi? I do feel like Kenny needs to stay on this team. There's no clear replacement. I feel like you actually get an improved Kenny if they switch out an SMG, which they're not going to do. So my final verdict is keep this team the exact same way and just give it some time. If it still goes on Like, I feel like if OpTic really evaluates and they figure out to get the best out of like Kenny and just the team in general, either the SMGs need to play a bit more different, like we talked about already. Um, yeah, that's honestly where like I think the AR duo of Dashi and Kenny is fine. I feel like it's more just the dynamic of the SMGs which actually like affects Kenny. All that except for S&D and control. This is mostly like a hardpoint thing, but in control, it's honestly like a lot less about dynamic. You just had to get more kills, and you have to depend more on your SMGs, honestly. But yeah, but their control is fine at the major. I don't think they lost the control. Actually, I think they lost to Ravens. Dude. Here, I'm actually gonna look real quick. Holy cow, I'm off the tar right now. I'm off the tar. So they got 300 protocol control. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, I feel like they find more success in hardpoint and they brush up on like their S&D. I don't think control is gonna be that much of an issue for them because they're good at Hacienda, and Vault's a map that could easily like not be played. And then protocol, they do have to get better at protocol, but I think that comes down to Kenny just getting more kills on the map. Because with AG now on protocol control, like I don't think kills are the issue at all. It's honestly just more of like the team just needs to play more together. Like there's a lot of separation in the way that they play, like compared to other teams like Rocker. Like Rocker has turned the leaf on me. Like Rocker has made me a believer now. Like, if they just take the best things from these teams that are playing well using teamwork, they will find a lot more success. Because if Kenny, Shotzi, Dashi, and Pred are all on the same page and they're all, like, playing together, bro, unstoppable almost. There's going to be very few teams, like, except for LAT and FaZe, that will be able to play against them. They just need to play together. Like, we've already went through lots of examples in lots of different videos. But, yeah, I could keep yapping, but that's my short thing on Kenny, which ended up going at least 40 to 50. I was trying to do a half an hour, but I mean, I don't think half an hour is ever going to do it any justice. But if you would like longer episodes, let me know. I mean, I have no problem yapping. Or if you just enjoyed this episode of Burrito Talk, leave a like. Follow on Spotify podcasts or Apple Podcasts. I'm on all of those. This is where you can find the show Burrito Talk, BORITO space talk. This has been your boy Burrito. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out. Oh my God, you thought I was done, but no. Burrito's got more to say. He's got more to yap on. I forgot to bring up the point that Enable made at the beginning of the podcast where you heard his clip where he said that Kenny's the only one on the team who's not afraid to speak his mind, like not scared of like other people getting hurt, because he's more from like the old school. Even Dashi's from there, but I kind of feel like his personality is more catered towards doesn't like a lot of conflict, could view it as like bad vibes. I feel like that thing happened with Ghosty and MW2. Like I feel like Ghosty probably had some frustrations towards the game, but probably didn't word it in a way that Dashi and Shotzi like, so they kind of viewed it the wrong way. I don't know personally. This is me from the outside, not having any POV on that. But I'm curious to know what you guys think about Kenny. Either I'm not sure if he actually like fully voiced his opinion like with the emotion that he wants to, because I know Shotzi, he said multiple times, he's the type of person that does not like conflict at all. He has said he's gone better at it. I would assume AG probably feels like he's walking on glass right now, walking on eggshells right now, especially with the way that he came back, probably thinking he could probably be more exposable or expendable now that more than ever than he's been before. And then Dashi, I kind of feel like me personally, this is just my opinion, no dig at Dashi. We all know how great he is at the game mechanically, but I just don't think his mental has honestly ever been at the championship level before. And I mean that in all aspects of the game, not just like the winning way, but just like what it takes. Like I just don't feel like he's ever been there. And I feel like Kenny's like the only person in this team right now who could like have screaming matches, but not view it as like a bad vibe, but just like view it as like a, constructive thing. But I don't think the rest of the team maybe shares the same sentiment with the way they all are. So let me know your dynamics on that, because I'm thinking obviously they probably voiced their opinion, because I know people like Karma in the back. Like Karma's not going to be afraid to voice it. He doesn't give a flying fuck. And Tadashi doesn't like people who haven't played before giving their opinions, so I don't think JP is gonna be like, hey man, like you need to and then Dashi's gonna be, even though it's not even Dashi's fault. But like, anyways, I don't know. I'm yapping about that one, but I'm curious if like Kenny feels like he could fully voice his frustration and not rattle feathers, or if he has and it's just kind of messed up the vibes a bit, because it does feel like they're off in that scenario. And it's been like this for a while. It's even been like this last year, but they got those 2 makeshift championships that kind of like swept it under the rug, but now we're seeing the issues come back out, and I'm curious. Especially their S&D, man. Hook, I feel, was so big for them in S&D, and even though Kenny was still playing bad with Hook, I felt like they would still win because their S&D was good. He brought the synergy to work with Shotzi in the respawns and the S&Ds, and I don't think AG and Shotzi are working that as much together as they are just doing well, aka AG individually. Like AG's having great individual games, but I don't see the same teamwork and together in the duo-ness like in game. Like I see Hook and Shotzi like actively working together like a lot of the time on the map, but I don't see the same thing from Shotzi and AG. Haven't seen it since like MW3 champs, to be honest. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. This is Burrito once again with some extra yapping. Bada boom, bada bye. We'll see you next time.